Hello everyone, welcome to Vishesh Educational Videos. In this video, I'm explaining about the actors on the scene. Actors on the scene means the people who are all responsible for creating the database, maintaining the database, users that are going to use the database, right? I'm going to explain about all these people, right? In this video, actors on the scene. So if you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like and share. Let me begin the explanation of actors on the scene. As I told you, actors means people, those who are responsible for creating the databases, maintaining the databases, not only that, using the databases. Different actors are there, right? I'm going to discuss about those actors now. So let me begin the explanation. So actors on the scene. So before discussing the actors, you should know one thing here. When I say actors, this actors applies to large databases because large databases will have large amount of data. Then we need more number of people to maintain that database. But if it is a simple database or a personal database, right, it can be maintained by a single person. Not a problem. Actors are needed for the large databases because many number of people needed for maintaining that large databases. If it is a simple database, if it is a personal database, we don't need so many people. I need only one person. For example, Microsoft Access that can be maintained by a single person. Getting us? Then actors become irrelevant for this. Actors become relevant when you are maintaining, when you are using the large databases, right? Here if I say actors are users, the users of the database, actors of the database can be divided into two types here. First category is the people who actually use and control the database content. People who are going to use the database, not only use the database and also control the content. They can edit, they can delete, they can design, they can develop, they can maintain the database applications. These people are called as actors on the scene. Actors on the scene means these people is going to directly interact with the database. They are going to directly use the database. They are going to control the database. They can do whatever they want. They can develop, they can maintain, they can do the changes, they can design. They can design the database also. Database designers also actors on the scene only. They will directly interact with the database. They will directly design the database itself. These are all the actors on the scene. Who are all the workers behind the scene? Behind the scene means they are not directly related to the database. They are not going to use the database directly. They will interact with the database in a background. Who are all those? Those people who design and develop the Dbms software. These people, they won't create the database, they won't maintain the database. They develop the Dbms software that is needed for maintaining the database and creating the database. You can't create the database, you can't maintain the database if there is a Dbms software is not there. If Dbms software is not there, you can't do that, right? That's why these people won't interact with the database, but they will develop the software that is needed for the database, related tools, all those things. And computer system operators, right? Computer system operators, they won't interact with the databases directly, but then right, then they will repair the database. If anything happens, these operators may repair the database, right? These are workers behind the scene. They won't use the database directly. They will interact with the database in the background. Directly they won't use. Actors on the scene means these are the people who are responsible for creating the database itself, not only creating it, using it also, maintaining it also. Getting, guys? Now we will discuss these actors on the scene in a very detailed way. First one, database administrator, that is DBA. He is the actor on the scene. He is going to directly interact with the database. See, what are the tasks of a DBA? This is the chief administrator. He is the chief administrator. What he is going to do means he oversees and manages the database system. He is the person who is responsible for managing the database system, including data and the software. A database administrator is going to manage both the database also and the data inside the database also. And what are the duties of a DBA? He include authorizing users, means he is the person who is responsible for giving the permissions, username and password to the users. Not everybody can access the database. Only the people who is authorized by the DBA can use the database. He is responsible for giving the username and password to the users of the database. Not only that, he should coordinate, he should monitor its use. Database use should be monitored by DBA. What is the percentage of space that is remaining in database? What is the percentage of space he need to delete? Those things should be maintained by DBA. Not only that, acquiring the hardware and software, you should maintain the hardware also. That hardware that is needed for the database, the hardware, software needed for upgrades, that needs to be maintained by the database administrators. If it is a small company, only one DBA is enough. But in large organizations, DBA might have a support staff also, because the task is very tedious, right? That's why. So database administrator role is to manage the database system, not only the database, the data also. You should authorize the users to use the database, you should monitor the use, you should acquire the softwares, right? Those things. DBA is an actor on the scene because he is going to directly interact with the database. Next, database designers. I told you, database designer itself actors on the scene. They are going to design the database itself. Definitely, when they are designing means they have to interact with the database. That's why. So database designers, they are responsible for identifying the data to be stored and for choosing an appropriate way to organize it. For example, if I say a database, not only you are going to store the text in the database. No, video database. YouTube is, maintains the database that stores the video. Multimedia databases. If I say a database, the database should not contain only text. It can contain image also. It can contain video also. So database designers, first they need to make sure that what type of database they are developing. If they are developing a video database, then their strategy should be different. If they are developing a text database, then their strategy should be different. They have to choose that strategy properly. They have to choose the way to organize the data properly. For organizing text data, the strategy may be different. For organizing the video data, the strategy may be different. So database designers, before designing the database, they have to do this. They should identify what type of data needs to be stored in the database and choose the appropriate strategy. Not only that, the database designer, they also define different views for different categories of users. For example, if it is a bank database, customer view may be different, manager view may be different. Manager can see the customer data, but customer can't see the manager data. That view is different. Customer view is different, manager view is different. He should be responsible for giving different views also, right? When manager log into the database, whatever the feature that is he is going to see, that is different. When a customer log into the database, whatever the feature he is going to see, that features are different views for manager and different views for the customer. Getting, guys? Those things needs to be maintained by database designer. And finally, the design should be developed in such a way that it should meet all the requirements of the users. Every users. Not subgroup means manager is one type of user, customer is one type of user. You should develop the database in such a way that the needs of the customer and the needs of the manager, both the needs should be developed in such a way that you have to develop the database. So these are the things that is done by database designers. So hope you are understanding the concepts. If you have any doubts, please post your doubts in the comment section. So database administrator, directly they will interact. Database designer, directly they will interact with the database. So these two people are actors on the scene. Not only these two people, end users. End users means what? We people, customers, those who are going to use the database. Right? End users also, they will directly interact with the database well, right? That's why end users also actors on the scene. So end users are nothing but these are the persons who access the database. Why they use the database? End users for querying, for updating, for report generation, for those purposes. These users are going to directly use the database. So if I say a end user, end users can be of different types. Getting, guys? If I say users of a database, different users use different users use the database for different purposes. We will see what are all the different types of users those who are going to use the database. First one is casual end users. Who are these? These are the people going to use the database occasionally. They will use the database very occasionally. They won't use the database frequently. Frequently means regularly they won't use. They will use the database only occasionally, only when they need the information. And one more important thing, every time they need different information. For example, customer who is purchasing the product through e-commerce website, he is a casual user. He may log in months together. For example, first he will log in, then after 5 months he will log in, like that. He is a casual user. Occasionally he will use the database. Every time he may order different products. That's why. So these are casual end users, right? They occasionally use the database. Example, e-commerce user, that is Flipkart, Amazon, those type of users. Next, parametric end users, right? So here these are like clerks. Best example for this type of end users are clerks. They will use the database more frequently. Clerk has to use the same bank clerk has to use the same database every day. Every day they has to use the same database. Every day they has to see the same customer data. That's why this type of user, parametric end users, means they will use the database very frequently. And one more important thing, if I say a frequent users, they can use cannot transaction. Now you can ask a question, sir, what is this cannot transaction? Cannot transaction means whatever the function you have to do within a single key. For example, for saving the customer data, F2 is the function key. This is cannot transaction. For every time they should not use the save option. Clerk can use F2 repeatedly. This is cannot transaction. I can assign more frequent tasks to a single function key. Thereby the task of the clerk will become easy, because they have to save the customer data more frequently. I have to make it simple. That's why cannot transaction. I can assign that feature to only one function F2 key. Every time when they want to save the data, they can use that same key any number of times without any problem. So parametric users are more frequently database using users. Example, I told you, clerk, bank clerk. Not only that, reservation clerks for airlines. Then shipping clerks. For example, barcode scanners. That is courier boys. These people can be considered as parametric end users. Next, not only this, not only the casual, not only the parametric, sophisticated end users. These users may be engineers, scientists, business analysts, scientists. They will implement their own applications to meet the complex needs. They will develop this type of end users. They will develop their own database. They will develop their own database to meet their needs. Example, engineers, scientists. These are sophisticated end users. Standalone users. Standalone users means these are the users, they are going to use the database mainly for the personal use. Personal use. Standalone users means they are going to use the database for the personal use. Standalone, only for the single user. Example, tax database, financial database. Database that contains the financial data of a person. Yes, that financial database doesn't contain all the economical data of all the people. No, that financial data of a single person will be there in the database. I can develop my own financial database to maintain the economic data of money related data of myself. Personal databases. This is standalone users. Tax related information, that can be also an example for standalone users. Getting, guys? So who are all the actors on the scene? Database administrator, database designer, end user. These are all the people who are going to use the database directly. Last category of actors on the scene is system analysts and application programmers, software engineers. Software engineers are nothing but programmers, and nothing but they are going to code, right? Why they use the database? See here, system analyst, why they use the database means they determine the needs of the end users. System analyst has to use the database, why? To know about the needs of the user, especially first type of users, that is casual user and the parametric user. To identify the needs of that users, the system analyst need to use the database. They need to analyze the data that is present in the database. For example, for parametric user, they have to assign one function key. Think like that. To assign that function key, they have to check what is the repeatedly used data. Then the system analyst has to see that data, right? That's why. So they has to determine the needs of the user. System analyst has to use this. See, I told you, right? For cannot transactions, to meet the cannot F2 data, right? That is the press. I told you, right? To save it, they has to press the F2 continuously, right? To know that, they has to see what type of data they use regularly. That's why system analysts can analyze that using the database. Next, application programmers. That means simple words. Software engineers, coders. Why they need the database? Mainly to implement, to test, document and maintain programs that satisfy the specification mentioned above. Programmers has to check the database, right? Why they will check the database means to implement the features. To implement the features that are going to use the data that is present in the database. If they know what type of data is stored in the database, they can develop the program according to the data. Right? If the data maintained is huge, they can use a different programming language. If the data maintained is very small, they can go for a very simple programming language like that. For that purpose, to get the idea what type of software I have to develop for this, they have to see the data, right? When they see the data, they can take a decision, right? For that purpose, application programmers can use the database. They will directly use the database, right? Obviously, they have to use the database directly to take the decisions. So these are the actors on the scene: DBA, database designer, end user, system analyst, and system programmers. One and the same. Software engineers. They has to. These are the actors on the scene, right? They has to use the database directly. Next, workers behind the scene. Worker behind the scene means they won't use the database directly, but these people are needed to needed for the database working. Without them, it will be difficult. Workers behind the scene. So DBMS are system designers. Yes, I already told you, database you need to store the data. You have to create the database. How you are going to create the database? By using the DBMS software. Without DBMS software, you can't create the database. To maintain that, to create that database, you need DBMS software. So that's why I need DBMS system designers and implementers. So DBMS software is the foundation for all this. If you need, if you have this, you can do that. That's why these are background workers. Not only them, tool developers. For example, tool developers. Tool means these tools will make the task of the users easy, task of the end users easy. For example, you can ask a question: antivirus for the database. This is not necessary, but this tool, this is not compulsory. But if you have this tool, antivirus tool, you can use it to avoid the viruses. You can scan the database. Tool developers design and implement software tools facilitating database system design. Not only that, they can develop a software to design the database. They can develop the software to analyze the performance of the database. They can design a software to monitor the database. Right? They will make the task of a user easy by developing additional softwares. Getting, guys? Not only that, graphical user interfaces to interact with the database. To make it easy for a user, they will develop a user interface for the database. Icons, using the graphical items, icons, text boxes. Then what happens? It will be easy for you to interact with the database. So tool developers. Lastly, operators and maintenance personnel to maintain the database. They are responsible for day-to-day operation of the system. If a database is not working, they have to correct it. If they have to make sure that the database needs to be working 24/7. Those things maintain. They have to maintain it. They have to check about the power things, power issues. If any power issues happens, they have to maintain that. They have to correct it. Right? Finally, they are responsible for making the database work 24/7. They are responsible for day-to-day operations. So getting, guys? Hope you understood the concepts. Suppose if you have any doubts, please post your doubts in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video.